Hi and welcome back. In this lecture, I will introduce you to the SPICE project findings on common procurement. This video is intended for public authorities, national, regional and city, with concrete or initial plans for procurement of innovative transport or mobility solutions in the coming years. Now I will go through the benefits of forming common buyer groups, types of joint procurement, and what the challenges and barriers are to forming a common buyer group. For those who would like to learn more, I will finish by directing you to some further reading material. Common procurement is defined as the cooperation of two or more authorities in a procurement process. When public authorities work together to share knowledge, experience and resources when procuring similar items, this is known as a common buyer group. When authorities want to share knowledge about procuring innovative solutions, such as electric vehicles, but not necessarily procure it together, a more informal but equally beneficial common interest group can be formed. Common buyer groups can bring many benefits. They enable public authorities to share information on best practices of innovative procurements and share resources. The tender process can be complex and time-consuming, but being part of a common buyer group can result in reduced workloads through pooling resources, and when buying goods, economies of scale can be achieved through larger purchasing power. Despite these benefits, cooperation in common procurement is not well known or often not seriously considered, even though it has the potential to provide significant benefits for the authorities. Much of this is due to the challenges and barriers which I will discuss later in this lecture. Based on the information collected by the SPICE project, 4 different types of cooperation in public procurements are identified: joint procurement, procuring in parallel, joint procurement via a central body, and procurement based on a common specification. In the procurement directives, joint procurement is defined as procurement where 2 or more contracting authorities, public procurers, agree to perform certain specific procurements jointly. In a joint procurement, the procurers work together on one common set of tender documents and one tender process. Here we see some of the strengths and weaknesses of this particular form of common procurement. Pause here if you need a minute to read these through. In procurement by a central purchasing body, one central organization arranges the procurement process for a number of procurers, or rather contracting authorities. The central organization defines the tender documents and handles the tender process. Here we see some of the strengths and weaknesses of this particular form of procurement through a central purchasing body. In a parallel procurement, different procurers work together as much as possible on common elements in the procurement process, but at the end they will each have their own tender documents and tender process. Common elements can be developed in partnerships such as common tender procedures, common requirements, common specifications, etc. With this approach, the tenders can look very similar and happen at the same time in a harmonized way, but the procurers have the opportunity to fulfill their own requirements. This type of cooperation is not considered as joint procurement by the European Commission, but is still practiced and relevant to disseminate. In procurements based on a common specification, the central organization drafts common specifications for example, the technical requirements, contract templates, the procuring process, etc. Different procuring authorities can then use these common specifications for their own procurement process. These 4 types of common procurement, which I just mentioned, can be combined in some ways and altered in others, depending on the needs of the procurers. For references and practical examples on these types of common procurement, see the reading materials attached to this video presentation. There are significant benefits in cooperating in common procurements, and each model has different combinations of benefits and disadvantages compared to the others. But more importantly, there are obstacles and challenges in forming common procurement or common buyer groups, regardless of which model is chosen. I will now briefly describe these obstacles and challenges with the hope of informing public procurers as well as decision makers across Europe. These challenges in forming common buyer groups can be considered in 3 overall categories: technical, practical, and legal challenges. The technical challenges include different levels of technical maturity of the different procurers. This creates varied foundations on which transport procurement can be built, and therefore misalignment of needs and solutions. The same result is created by legacy systems and vendor lock-in solutions, which result in procurers needing different technical solutions, though the function might be the same. The next type of challenges to common procurement as such are practical and organizational challenges. Among the practical challenges, common buyer groups have a higher complexity in tendering, which means that they are more costly than single procurements. The procurers should ensure that the reduction in price of the solution outweighs the additional expenditure for tendering in common. Furthermore, when procuring innovation, common procurement might be the only way to secure critical mass for a solution, regardless of the complexity and the price of the procurement. A lack of knowledge of procurement processes of common procurements and of a network of other potential procurers with the same interests might also be an obstacle for the road towards common procurement. Therefore, it is important to pick up on the best practices from across Europe and network with other cities, regions and states with, for example, similar policy goals as one's own. The Procurement Directive Articles 38 and 39 have aimed at solving some of the uncertainties attached to cross-border tender procedures carried out by two or more procuring authorities, for example, an obligation to make clear agreements on the division of responsibilities and internal organization, and to inform the market of which national legislation to apply. However, the articles do not solve all the legal challenges in doing common procurements. The SPICE project is encouraging public authorities to take the next steps towards cooperating to procure innovative mobility solutions, to bring potential partners together and to share to initiate cooperation and thereby optimize the cost, time and effort. By analyzing best practices and discussions during SPICE events, it could be seen that the main common challenges were found as forming common buyer groups, standardization, knowledge and experience sharing, and legal issues. The main solutions to the challenges facing common buyer groups can be summarized by the following: more knowledge pooling, sharing labor, identifying common goals, harmonization and standardization, and stimulating suppliers. Further reading material, including more detailed analyses of common procurements, are available in the attached reading materials, but also on these links. Thank you very much.